This is a response to the Presumption of Atheism project, the collaborative project between Veritas 48 and Telemantros and DawahFilms. So my thanks to the three of you for starting this dialogue. I don't define my own skepticism in terms of either positive or negative atheism. I don't say I know there's no creator because I feel that leads to the challenge of trying to prove that there's no invisible supernatural power. And I don't think it's possible to prove the non-existence of something invisible. And I don't define my skepticism as saying I lack a belief in a creator, because even though that is true about me, I just find it a bit too vague. And I'd rather use the more specific sentence that I believe the existence of a supernatural creator is more improbable than probable. And I find that such a belief best fits the category of atheism, which is why I call myself an atheist, but some people will label my views agnostic, and I don't mind when they do. Regardless, I agree with the challenge of this Presumption of Atheism project, that even a statement such as, I believe the existence of a creator is more improbable than probable, does need some kind of justification. So to explain why I hold this belief, I'm going to take a step back to when I believed the opposite, because up until the mid-1990s, I thought a creator's existence was more probable than improbable. So back then I was somewhere in between a deist and an agnostic, but leaning closer to deism than agnosticism, because I thought the idea of some sort of higher power best addressed the two issues commonly known as the design argument and the first cause argument. And I'll just add here, well, perhaps unnecessarily, that organized religions always struck me as man-made guesswork. And I always saw them, and still do, as just stories that people throughout history make up in order to an attempt to try to explain creation, explain why they're suffering, try to figure out what rules we should live by, and to offer stories about what happens after we die. So these similar motives explain why different religions have so many similarities, but the fact that radically different cultures have manufactured these stories explains the radical differences. All right, problems of theism aside, though, I still found the design and the first cause arguments were compelling enough to at least make it likely that there's some sort of higher power, even if this higher power is something just utterly beyond our comprehension. Now, I started to change my mind about the design argument when I started studying evolution more carefully. Now, I want to keep this as a single video rather than a 10-part series, so I won't go into any of the specifics of evolution. I'll just say that my study of those specifics made me realize that when you combine random mutations with non-random accumulations of favorable variants over thousands and millions and even billions of years, well, then you can get something that very much looks like it was purposely and intelligently designed, but came about through only a natural process. Now, I found that seeing life through this natural lens made sense of all observations in a way that the supernatural lens doesn't make sense. Now, both the natural and the supernatural explanations do a good enough job at explaining and making sense out of beautiful and efficient designs, say like the bird's wing. But when it comes to things like inefficient designs or designs that entail great pain and suffering, I find that the natural explanation is far more convincing than the supernatural. Now, for those who need an example of an inefficient design, we could take the example of the design of the tubes for our air and food, and the fact that they share a certain space in a way that makes it possible to choke to death for lack of air when you're eating food. Now, if the trachea and esophagus were the products of intelligent plan design, it seems more likely that they'd be designed completely separately in a way that would avoid this kind of mishap. This is just one example. For those who need an example of a design that entails great suffering, there's the fact that much of life depends on killing other life, often with great pain involved, just in order to survive. The way, for example, the cheetahs are designed to survive by chasing that terrified gazelle and then ripping out chunks of its flesh. Now, I know theists do have explanations for pain and suffering, and I have a video series on that subject called The Problem of Suffering, the 7 supernatural explanations versus the 1 natural. But for the reasons I go into during that series, I find the natural explanations far more convincing than the supernatural. But evolution, of course, only starts once you have a self-replicating cell, and even more importantly, once you already have a universe. So, I acknowledge that everything about naturalistic evolution could be true, yet there still could be a higher power behind the creation of the universe and the subsequent creation of that first self-replicating cell, that first spark of life. And again, it was further study that led me to believe that the supernatural explanation is the less likely answer. Now, cosmology certainly doesn't attempt to prove or disprove the existence of a creator, but what it can do is take us back some 13.73 billion years to the pure energy of the Big Bang and explain how energy converted to hydrogen and how hydrogen fused into helium and other elements, and how these elements could form to combine galaxies and stars, and how exploding stars can produce not only planets but the fundamental building blocks of life, such as sulfur, phosphorus, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon. So, getting back to the first cause question, on a very high level, I see two possibilities. Option A, the naturalistic explanation, is that the simple mass energy of the Big Bang just existed, and the fundamental building blocks of life on Earth came together in an accidental way that's currently unknown to us, although there are many hypotheses. Or option B, the supernatural explanation, that an infinitely complex, unevolved deity just existed. A deity that created that simple mass energy some 13.73 billion years ago. And then about 4 billion years ago, created that first simple self-replicating cell. And then also happened to leave life as single cell for the next 3 billion years or so. So in other words, I feel that pointing to God is the answer for the first cause question is not only a matter of postponing it to the question of, well, how did God come to exist? It's actually amplifying the problem. Because instead of trying to explain the existence of the Big Bang's simple energy and hydrogen and explaining how elements like sulfur, phosphorus, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon could combine to make a simple cell, well, now you've got the much bigger problem of trying to explain the existence, the infinite existence, of an incredibly complex thinking supermind. So this is why I think the existence of supernatural being is more improbable than probable. Now, two last quick points. For better or worse, I actually have very little passion for the subject of the unlikeliness of God's existence. Just about every one of the videos on my channel takes something of a deistic approach, at least in the sense that the skepticism is focused only on theism. That is, the claims that our said creator has left specific written directions. And I explain why I take this approach in one of my videos, and it's called 3 Advantages to Questioning the Creator's Word, but Not a Creator. All right, and last, just some advance apologies if I fail to respond with further videos to anyone who makes video responses to me. I have a lot of new responsibilities in my day job, plus some pressing family obligations. Plus, I've started a new writing project. So I'm trying to limit my YouTube involvement just to the comments section, and I plan on making new videos only maybe once every couple months or so. All right, but Veritas's video on this subject got me thinking to the point of insomnia, so I had to get this off my chest. All right, thanks for watching.